This is Colourful Radio. Our music, our news, our views.
So I'm now joined by Dr Lez Henry. And you know what, Dr Lez, when I was looking at your bio and stuff, you do so much that I just thought, where do I even begin? So as we're talking about self-acceptance and identity and who defines Black, I actually am going to put it over to you, for you to tell the audience who you are and what you do.
Okay. Greetings, everyone. And first, much love and respect to Colourful Radio and to the beautiful sister Lisa for inviting me in here. And when it comes to, usually when people say to me, what do you do? I usually say, my stock answer is a lot of things. And people probably think criminality straight away.
God.
But I just do so many things. And I think that when we actually get into the discussion about what identity is, we can start to unpack some of those things, because I'm a father, I'm a grandfather, I'm a son, I'm a brother, I'm a cousin, I'm an uncle. I'm an uncle to people in my family. I'm an uncle to many more who are not my family, because as an African person, you know, that's something that we were taught, that as best you can, it takes a village to raise a child. However, the other part of the saying that people oftentimes leave out is, if the children don't feel part of the village, they will burn down the village to feel its warmth.
Wow.
So they have to be included. It can't be piecemeal. They have to belong to something. So if you ask me, how do I identify myself? I'm Smuddy Pickney. I belong to my mother, I belong to my father, I belong to this earth. And I absolutely believe that my ancestors chose me as a vessel for African liberation. So what I do is everything that I can do.
Wow.
Within reason, because I'm just a man.
See, I couldn't have spoken your bio then. You've done it yourself in your own way, within your own definition. And because you've done that, it proves that I couldn't have done a good a job as you.
Well, the thing
Brilliant thing to say.
Because what we do is, you know, I always say we work with what we have on the table. No one knows me as good as me. So if I was giving you an introduction, I would only be able to base it, especially this is the first time we've ever met in flesh and blood. Maybe in spirit, we don't know. But so I can only go based on either what someone tells me, what I've researched, but that's not really you and that's not really me. Because if we start talking about the nuances in what we do and the multiple identities that we have, it would go on forever. We would never do an interview.
Very true. And as we are talking about self-acceptance with the focus on defining who we are, just leading on from what Spike Lee said, he said, we've gone through the names Negro, African-American, African and Black. For me, that's an indication of a people still trying to find their identity. Who determines what is Black? And I'd like to pose that question to you, Dr. Lez.
Well, I'll be honest with you, and I said this years ago that I would never have the African-Black discussion in public again, but I will briefly today.
Thank you.
The reason is because, for me, Black is political. We can use it as a cultural, socio-biological category, but Black is political. Because as my last two daughters pointed out to me when I used to get bent out of shape about people going on about, are they Black, are they this, that? My daughter said to me, they're not colours, Dad, they're shades. And to me, they're shades of consciousness. And I remember in a rap tune I did in the 80s called Too Black in Brixton, where I played on the words Brixton and Britain, because every time I went abroad, especially in America, you know, they would say, where are you from, brother? I'm from Britain. Britain? You mean you're from Brixton? Because as if everybody Black lived in Brixton. But the way they made sense out of our identities as people, Africans or Black people or whatever from that part of the diaspora, was they had to locate us in a place. So what I realized when I did that track was, for me, Black is political. That's what it is. Because if I'm in America and I don't open my mouth, they do not know where I come from. If I'm in Jamaica and I don't walk, is it all right? It's my father. My father's playing tunes for us.
Yes, he is.
Peace be upon him. See, I like them kind of things, you know. That's the vibes. That was a lovely piece of music.
That was spooky. That just came in from nowhere. I don't know what happened there.
You don't have to.
Wow.
Yeah. But so for me, what I realised is Black was a political definition. So one of the things, if you remember Karen Wheeler, Soul to Soul, she did an album, I believe it was in about 1991, called UK Black, BLAK. Because what we were doing in the UK, and again, I have to give respect to one of my mentors, a guy called Professor Herbert Ekwe. He said that the way we have to be black is more than complexion. It's about consciousness, and it's about everything else. So when Karen Wheeler did UK Black, she spelt it BLAK Black. And what I did was I took that and used that black almost as an acronym and started to talk about Black liberation, African knowledge.
Wow.
And in 2006, myself and some other great people firstly in our company, New Beyond, and then with assistance from people like Brother Hakeem, Paula Binner, Sandra Hurst, peace be upon her, Esther Stanford, Brother Andrew Mohammed, we did loads of events called Black Fridays, Black Liberation African Knowledge Friday. And every single last Friday of every month for about 5 years, if you came to where we were, whether we were in Catford or Brixton, you would get a brother or sister, generally from over here, come in and speak about some notion of black identity. What does it mean? So what did it mean from a Nation of Islam perspective? What did it mean from a Hebrew Israelites perspective? What did it mean from a so-called black British perspective? But how I think we get confused is because people come out with things like, where's this country called black? Well, where's the country called white? But we know what white power is. We know what white supremacist thought and action is, which is why one of the books I wrote called Whiteness Made Simple, and I often get, harangued for saying this, but we have to separate whiteness from white people because blackness is not black people. Black people can promote blackness because anything that we do, whether it's down to our culinary tastes or the aesthetics of how we dress or how we look or how we act or how we dance, that is a representation of blackness. But that's not really powerful because it's only powerful within its own arena. So we may understand that to be black is not about eating rice and peas and jerk chicken. There's a lot of other stuff that goes into that. Yeah. But from the outside, this is what the representation is. But when you flip it and you look at everything that is supposedly powerful, it equates to white. Here's a little example. I was on the internet, on Yahoo, going to my email, and I saw this white woman with these provocative poses. She is the #1 twerker in the world.
Yeah,
she earns a 6-figure salary twerking. Yeah. If you came to my classes, and I'm not plugging my class, I'm just telling you, yeah, I do classes on race and representation in the media and on television. I'll be doing the next one for Black History Studies, so you can go on their site. It's going to be from November to December. In that class, one of the people we look at is Josephine Baker. Most people don't know. Do you see Josephine Baker and Eartha Kitt? I could do lectures on them all day, every day, because they were phenomenal women who don't necessarily get the recognition. So Josephine Baker, I think she was born in 1906. She went to France. She became a French national, fluent in French, refused to perform for segregated audiences anywhere in the world. She was a spy for the French Renaissance during the Second World War. But more importantly, she was noted as such a civil rights activist that Coretta Scott King, when Martin Luther King got assassinated, she asked Josephine Baker to head up the movement. Wow. Most people don't know that. But that's not the point I'm making. Watch Josephine Baker dance. Not twerking that. Is that not what she was doing?
Yep.
Those we know as African people, and I'm not somebody who often says Africans do this and Africans do that, but one of the things we know, those kind of hip gyrations, controlling the cheeks of your bottom and all that, this African thing from a long time. I remember seeing people do that when I was a child. You go to Jamaica, you see that. But how the world works is, until a white face does it, it's not acceptable. And this is why oftentimes we get caught up in these notions of identity as to whether we're black or whether we're African. And the point that Brother Spike Lee makes is a beautiful point, because if you don't have the power to define your own reality, you will constantly be redefined. Think about a child, good child, bad child, naughty child, lovely child.
It starts from early, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example within my own family, okay? Or I should say, people who are associated with my family. I remember hearing a conversation, this was probably 20 years ago, and it was a guy talking to his cousin. And his cousin at the time, she was about 15, 16. And he said to her, "You used to be really good looking, but you're not anymore. And I said to him, the reason why you can say that to your little cousin is because your notion of beauty does not come up wrapped in black skin, although you're black. All your partners are always white women. So therefore, aesthetically, as she's getting older, you're regarding her in the same way you regard black women, like it or not. Because that's why in my whiteness book, I say whiteness is the ever-present non-presence that molds and shapes reality. What that means,
just goes to show how important it is for us to acknowledge that and literally redefine who we are based upon our own
we
ideas.
have to self-define.
Yeah.
When I was 15, I was told at the Moonshot Youth Club by people like Elder Herakuti, who's on Galaxy Radio now. We used to know him as Ras Cosmo, and people like that, Rupert Clark, people who used to teach us African history. We're African people. So from I was 15, a long time ago, I realized I was an African person. And in many ways, I always say to people who I really thank for making me know I was an African person, and I don't know if he did it consciously or not, was my late father. Well, him not late, him dead. I don't even know why I used that word. Him dead long time. You know, peace be upon him, loved my dad. But I remember myself and my twin brother watching TV once, and there was like an African brother being interviewed on the news, and he had this really heavy accent. And the hypocrisy of me and my brother was, we had loads of people living in our house, Irish people. We had an African-American guy who taught us German, because we used to rent out rooms. We had a big house. It's the racist thing. You buy a house, you don't live nowhere, that kind of thing. We were watching TV, and there was a brother on there with a heavy accent, probably probably from Kenya or somewhere like that. And me and my brother were laughing. And you know what my father said to us? He said, I bet those white people can't speak to him in his language, but whether you like his accent or not, they understand every word he's saying in their language. And from then, we had to kind of check ourselves and think, hold on, what's going on here? Somebody is trying to make us think that if something that looks like us speaks with even the slightest hint of an accent, they're backward, savage, or primitive. However, if they're Scottish with a heavy Scottish brogue or Irish brogue or Welsh and they speak Welsh language, we don't see them as savage. So there must be something else going on in that equation. And what is going on in that equation is somebody or a system is in place that is identifying you, but it's based on the wrong aesthetic. You know, I remember when I was a kid, you know, white kids would say, oh, look at your fat jungle lips and all this kind. Wow. Well, how could it be an insult if that's how God, the goddess, the creator, the divine presented me on this planet? So when I look at beauty through my own lens. So there's no way someone can come up to me and say, boy, that sister's really ugly over there. And I'll say, well, maybe she is, maybe she isn't. But to me, she isn't. Because I'm not looking for the same things.
And that's a really interesting point that you make, actually. You made quite a few interesting points in there. We're going to go to that song that just magically came up, which actually is called Open Your Eyes, which I think is quite fitting. And it's by Gospel Clef. So we'll continue this discussion after this track. Okay, so that was Open Your Eyes by the Gospel Clefs. And I played that as well because, as you know, Colourful Radio over Black History Month are highlighting different types of genres of music that were important and just rose from a particular place in a particular era. So I played that for a particular reason. And also the fact that we're talking about identity, we're talking about representations, media representations, how you define yourself, how you see yourself. And that track is called Open Your Eyes. And I just think it linked really nicely with what Dr. Lez was saying, which is you have to be awake. You have to know why you believe, what is yours and what isn't. So I think that tied in lovingly. Also as well, Dr. Lez, over this month you're doing many talks and all of them look really, really interesting. The Dracula syndrome, Who's Afraid of the Man in the Mirror, stuck out for me due to the title and also the summary that I read. So can you explain what this is about?
Yeah, again, like with many things, it's anecdotal and it's based on an experience. When I used to teach in a particular university, we had 3 new black members of staff. One was a sister. I can call her my sister now. For 1 calendar year, she avoided me. So if I saw her in the corridors, she would walk the other way. If I saw her in the staff room, she would leave. And at the time, I was sharing an office with a white guy. And one day he said to me, oh, you know, blah, blah. She's such a lovely lady. You know, we're always having coffee. And I went, well, I don't know. She never talks to me. And he said, what do you mean she don't talk to you? And I said, she don't talk to me. He goes, why? What do you think the problem is? And I said, she suffers from the Dracula syndrome. And he said, what's that? And I said, she's afraid to look in the mirror. Because every time she sees me, it's a reflection of something, perhaps something she doesn't like about herself, or maybe it was the locks and the representation that comes with the locks. But for me, it was about that association of her with me as two African people or two black people. So that was the problem. So I ended up writing a paper on it, which became lecture, which became a chapter in a book that I've written as well. Because for me, what it was is, I'm not one of these people who condemns people for where they are in their journey. And if I do so, I'll do it in private. I'm not going to say, you're a seller, or you're a this, or you're a that. You know, I try to stay away from those things. And the older I get, the reason is because no one can guarantee anybody life. Myself and a guy called Brother Hakeem, we work with a lot of gang-affiliated young people, from people who've shot people to stab people to whatever. And one day we was doing a session, and like this young person said to us, all this information is lovely, but can you tell me I'll be alive tomorrow?
Wow.
I said, I can't even tell you if you'll be alive in an hour. And he said, well, that's why a lot of people ain't interested in what you've got to say. It's not a disrespect to you. It's just the fact that the way they see it, this may be my last breath. This may be my last hour. I wrote about that as well when I was talking about young people. This was years ago. And in fact, there's a documentary called Bang Bang in the Manor. I always say to people, if you want to see the best documentary, and it's not just because I'm in it, but the best documentary on so-called black-on-black violence and gang crime, it's called Bang Bang in the Manor. I believe it came out in 2004 or something like that. It's produced by Rice and Peas Films, which is Ishmael Blagrove.
That's it.
Ishmael is just
director,
fantastic. And the one he did on the Aborigines, or so-called Aborigines.
I actually did an interview with him for that. This is Our Country Too. It was that one, wasn't it?
But
brilliant.
That's Ishmael, because Ishmael doesn't compromise, ever. He just tells it as it is. And in Bang Bang in the Manor, I spoke about some of the people I was working with at that time, some of the young people whose their whole, let's say, social trajectory was based on maybe living till 18 or 19 years old. These are 15 and 16-year-olds. Because the representations they've had of themselves rammed down their throats through the media is like top boy. Why not be top man? Because you can never be a man in a white man's world. As Americans used to call it, Mr. Charlie. You can be the man in your little community, but to the man, you're a boy. You know, Francis Cress Welsing talks about that in the ISIS papers, about why black men call each other boy and baby, because all the other categories have been taken by white people. The man. So you can only be the boy or the baby.
But is that something that can be, because you know we talk about glass ceilings and stuff, is that something that you believe can be shattered? But but the key is that they don't know that. They don't believe that.
No, because they don't. You see, for me, I'll be really honest with you, I am not into censorship of information. I am not into even worrying about what so-called white society does to me, or white racists want to do to me, or what they think about me. I don't care. I don't have energy to waste on that. What I'm worried about is, how do I get my story over there? Because the more you put your story out, the more balance there will be. Most human beings, it's like a friend of mine sent me a clip today from Jane Elliott, who does the blue-eyed, brown-eyed experiment on race.
Oh, yes.
Which is taken from an old study by, I think it's Brown and Brown. They did it first in America, something like that. With the black dolls, you know, that kind of stuff. And in the Jane Elliott on Oprah Winfrey, you know, she said something that most serious sociologists will tell you. Biological race begins with the death of biological theory, because there are no biological differences between members of the human family that are that apparent that they become discrete categories. Because as long as you're a human being, you're a human being. And what Jane Elliott said on Oprah, which I've subscribed to for years, is no one is born racist.
No, they're not.
You learn. So if you learn it, you can unlearn it. And the only way you will unlearn it is to have balance. And who Chinua Achebe said it, and I say it nearly every time I speak. He said that if, as African people, we don't tell our own stories, we will disappear. He didn't say we might disappear. He said we will disappear. Why do you think that if you go to places in America like Oklahoma, and our brothers and sisters, the so-called American Indians, their narratives are disappearing? Because they're oral historians. And the people who controlled them knew how to control that oral history. You wipe out all the oral historians, you wipe out aspects and generations of their history. That's how it works. So if you find a way to kind of countermand or counteract that, what's the best way to do it? Tell your own story. That's what feminism is. Which, by the way, is influenced by movements like the Black Panther Party, and people need to overstand. A lot of the pro-black movements gave them a stand-in because there's this thing called epistemological privilege, and epistemology only means knowledge. It's the privilege of your knowledge. My early Rastafari teachers told me, who feels it knows it. So if you know it, who better than you to tell the story?
Right. You are your own expert. No one else is the expert of you.
Absolutely. That's why when people, the other day I did a talk and somebody said, well, I'm not an expert. And I said, but you don't have to be. Why do you have to? Look, I've got a PhD. I bust my head to get that PhD. So when I got the PhD, I celebrated and bought myself something that I really wanted. And this is the other thing I always say to people, celebrate yourself.
Yes.
So if you achieve something, and I say this to all the young people I work with and the students I teach, what you do is for you. Your parents can bask in your glory, so can your friends and so can your family. But ultimately, what you do is for you. So you celebrate that because it's an achievement, it's a milestone, and that is a sense of, I did that, I achieved that. Not on your own, as if you're self-generated in a vacuum, but what you're basically saying is, this is my achievement. I've celebrated it. No one can take that from you.
Out of interest, what did you buy yourself?
A Volvo convertible, brand new one. That's what I wanted. That's what I did.
You deserved it. You worked hard for that PhD.
But you know, the thing is, if I never had any money, I may be going to buy myself a packet of peanut treats, and or M&Ms they call them now, and I would remember. Because every single time, and I've told this to all my children, when you achieve something, you mark it. If you even mark it with a bottle of water, you will remember.
Yeah, it's important to do that every...
Because it's symbolic.
It is symbolic.
Absolutely.
And every Sunday, I begin this show with something called Appreciation Sunday. And it's a time where I invite the listeners to think about their week, to think about what they appreciate, and to actually let me know by sending me an email. So my friend or someone that I know actually on Twitter, she tweeted and said, I appreciate waking up this morning. And it's the little things, it's the big things, but it's whatever it is that you feel is important for you. So we do that every Sunday, we do that. And I think it's important to celebrate your achievements. You have
to, and you have to celebrate yourself. And you know, the thing is, you know, people say these things that you love yourself too much. What the hell does that mean?
You can't.
How can you love yourself too much unless someone is trying to tell you should really hate yourself? Oh, look at him, he's full of himself. Well, I'm supposed to be full of you? You know, a lot of things don't make sense. And to me, when you break it down, and especially culturally, socially, politically, theologically, whatever, for me, you have to find a way to say, what channel? This is me. I accept me. If you don't want to accept me, that's your problem. Avoid me.
Yeah.
But this is me. This is what you get. That's why on my website, I have a little saying that says, sometimes your word is all you've got. Try your best to keep it. That's as simple as that. Most people who know me, they know that's me. I'm trying to be of my word as much as is humanly possible.
Yeah.
So if I can do something, like you asked me, would I come and do the show? I said, with respect, I'd be honored to do the show. So there would be, unless something happened to me, I'm coming to do the show, because your word has to be your bond, and it goes out in the universe.
It really does.
Because I do not believe in coincidence. So even when that little bit of music came in,
I know, right?
that's what's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And that's why it happened.
That was spooky, but I appreciate that as well, because I don't believe in coincidences either.
No, you could, if the universe is in perfect working order, you know, human beings can create a layer of what appears to be disorder and disharmony. But the day when we get up and it's whatever time it is now, 12:15 on an autumn day, and it's pitch dark, and you know that at 12:15 tonight it's going to be daylight, then we know that man's got power. Until that day, the universe is in order. Human beings can come and create whatever kind of dystopia or mad society as they want, but the natural divine order, they can't do anything about it. And that's one of the reasons for me why you will see that, you know, as an African person, the more you look at the ways we do things collectively, because Africa is a continent, not a country. But if you look at the way we do things collectively, you see these similarities. You see them in the Caribbean. You see them in the Americas. You'll go there and you'll see people doing things and you're thinking, but we do that. Because culturally, I think spiritually, underneath all this dystopia, we're in sync. But someone, a system created by people, has put us out of sync.
Yeah, I always speak about the fact that it feels like we're disconnected at the moment.
Yeah, because
it really
there
does
is a
feel like we're
disconnect.
disconnected. And that goes back to your story or your experience with the lady at the university where she couldn't look at you, didn't speak to you. That's a disconnection. You should be able to at least look at your own mirror image and connect.
Absolutely.
As well as going out into the world and being able to do that. So the fact that you can't even do that with your mirror image is a massive disconnection.
But you see, for me as well, I'll be honest with you, that even in that scenario, because eventually me and the sister spoke and we get on really well, and she actually wanted me to mentor her brothers, which I thought was really ironic, because first it was like I was the devil, and then she realised I just am what I am. However, you know, we have this thing, I don't know about other people if they have it, you know, they might say instinct, whatever, but we have this thing, my spirit take you. So if your spirit takes somebody, you know, you just know you and them are going to be cool. If, however, you meet someone and they may well look like you, but your spirit tells you, then I think that that's the kind of person you need to keep at a distance.
That's a very good point you're making, actually.
Because if you're attuned, you know, and I've got a wonderful sister who always reminds me of that, and she just says, you know what, Les, sometimes you have to pull back, retune yourself, and then go back. Because if you're out of tune and out of sync, then you'll find all kinds of madness starts going on in your life.
That's where the drama comes.
And you're dragging in all this stuff. That's why I did a talk a few years ago for African Liberation Day. And I said to the brothers and sisters there, you know, you must live to love yourself and not hate other people. Because if you live consumed by hate, especially for other people because they're white or because they're whatever, you're destroying yourself.
Yep.
So you have to flip it. You know, Mother Teresa said she will never go on a anti-war rally, but invite her to a peace rally, she'll go. It's the same rally.
Different wording, different energy.
Wording, different energy.
Very interesting. Dr. Les, I could actually speak to you all day. And we still haven't touched on your love for reggae. And
Me love reggae.
yeah.
Me love it.
And for those who don't know, Dr. Lez's DJ name is Leslie Lyrics. So if you want to find out more about Dr. Lez Henry and about his music and documentaries and books, you can go onto his website. Dr. Les, what's your website?